Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very powerful show coming right up, and our special guest today is Gale. She's here to talk to us about her new book, Mindful Parenting in a Messy World, Living with Presence and Parenting with Purpose. Aside from being a best-selling author, Michelle is a mindfulness educator, corporate trainer, executive coach, and podcast host. She's on a mission to support parents in staying meaningfully connected to themselves and their families, even as the demands of work and life accelerate. She works in schools, communities, and corporations, teaching mindfulness and speaking to parents. So let's welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And you know what? I've been looking at your book, and my goodness, what a great book.
Thank you so much. It's been a labor of love for quite a long time. It's really nice to have it out in the world.
Well, why don't we start with that? Why don't we start with your labor of love? So how did this path even come into being for you?
Well, it came into being when I was in college. I was probably about 20 years old and having a lot of anxiety and worry and fears and feeling very alone. I looked great from the outside. I was putting myself through college. I was working full time. I was getting decent grades. But on the inside, there was a lot of sadness and anxiety and struggle. And I can't remember exactly what started me seeking, but I thought there must be a way. There must be a way to start to feel a little healing. And I ended up at a Unity Church, which is a non-denominational church. I went to Florida State. I was in Tallahassee. And during each service, there would be a very long, extended, guided meditation at the beginning of it. And I would just cry and pour tears each time that would happen. And I didn't know what was waking up inside of me, but I knew there was something there. And so I marched myself over to the bookstore at the church and bought cassette tapes, because those were the things that you listened to back then. And I started listening at night and just doing guided meditations on my own, and started reading books and Thich Nhat Hanh, Maya Angelou, a lot of different spiritual teachers. And then it kind of faded after college and woke up again when I had two very young sons. Right now I have a son who's 14 and one who's 11. And I was in the midst of a transition, wanting to change careers, really wondering, kind of had lost myself a bit as a parent after 4 years, kind of pausing and thinking, where did I go in all of this? I'm not really sure. Had turned myself over to motherhood so much, and between working and taking care of my children, I felt like I'd kind of lost who I was in all of that, and ended up deciding to shift from, I'd been working in the technology industry for many years as a recruiter, and decided to move into executive coaching work. And during the program I joined, there was a meditation was part of the practice, and a lot of somatic body work and a lot of embodiment work. And I took on a practice then and started very slowly, because it was very hard for me to sit in silence at that time. But when I started to sit again for the first time after all those years, I remembered, there's something here. There's something here. And that's kind of how it began. And I had very young children when I started practicing regularly. They were 4 and 6 months old or something. They were itty bitty. And so I always had to be very creative with how I practiced. And that's kind of the beginning of this book. How this book came into being was the messy life I was living, as we all do as parents. No matter what life we're living, life is messy with children and otherwise. And that was how it started. Yeah.
Well, and I think so many people can relate, and it's kind of, even looking at your website, it's just, how life is. Here you are, sitting in lotus position, and you've got your two sons that are going to attack you.
Yeah. Yes, and they're meant to, they're meant to. I mean, I'm fine with them interrupting me when I'm sitting. Sometimes I sit in in the kitchen, just for a few minutes. I have little reminders around my house to help me remember to pause and to stop and to sit. And so they see me doing it all the time. And if they interrupt me, that's okay.
Yeah, it's just part of the journey.
Yeah.
So when you define what a messy world is, for our listeners, why don't you share a little bit about what that means?
Yeah. Well, really what that means is just the lives we're living wherever we find ourselves, because I don't think that any of us can look back on maybe even any day to say, oh, no, totally smooth. Nothing went awry there. No emotional reaction. Nothing went wrong. It really is just the stuff of our lives. So when I say a messy world, I really just mean the life that we're living in that moment. Because if things are peaceful and calm in this moment, we can be sure that it's going to be messy in a few more moments at some point in our day.
Yeah. Well, and that's so true because, life's messy. You put your hair up and, later on it's kind of looking like it's doing something else. So, I get it.
Exactly. I remember reading, there was a story of a woman who told about her life story and, being uncomfortable when she was young and not wanting to wear certain clothes and to be a certain way. And it kept getting her older, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And by her 70s or her 80s, she's like, now I just put on a red hat. As I count my day. So that's my goal. Just put on the red hat.
That is too funny. Well, and so, being a parent, what are some of the messiest parts that you kind of see?
I think it depends on the parent. Everybody kind of gets triggered in their own ways. That's actually something I do very early on when I lead parent workshops or work one-on-one with people, whether it's parents who are staying at home or executives in offices. I always let them share, what triggers you? What is it? What is it that gets you going? Because it's different for all of us. I know some of my triggers that make my life messy, have the capacity to make my life messy, is when I'm either feel perceived that I'm running out of time, that I'm getting crunched for time. Like I notice that anxiety raise and my jaw get tight and, I might get a little flushed and start pacing. So if I'm running out of time, often with my children, it's if they are seemingly ungrateful. If I'm not giving some awareness to the moment, I can kind of pop up and snap pretty quickly if I have this idea in my mind that they're being ungrateful. So I think we all have our own triggers and the things that make our lives messy. The difference now is that there's so much stimulation going on for all of us, with technology and the pace of our lives. It's just kind of trying to keep up. And we are just regularly having this, in our brain, our amygdala is hijacked constantly. And it's this emotional, fear of emotional pain in every turn, whether we kind of catch a glimpse of the news or we're on Twitter or, our kids come home and they had a bad day or our partner's in a grumpy mood, whatever it might be, there's this constant message that something's wrong. And I think that's kind of where mindfulness really does some of its best magic, is being able to meet any of those moments with more equanimity, just with less attachment, just being able to oh yeah, that's something that's happening right now, rather than, oh my God, this is my life. This is who I am. It's just something that's happening.
Well, it's so important to make that separation because, it's just, even when we have those messy times, it's just a season.
It's just a season. And not only is it just a season, which it is, but it's also where the best juice of our own growth and development lies. And that's the core of the book. That's the core message that I share in the book, is that it's in that mess that our greatest potential for growth lives, always. It's always there. Of course, if we're having a beautiful moment, we want to be able to use our mindfulness to completely feel our joy and our gratitude and all of those beautiful, beautiful feelings and emotions that we can have. And yet it's when we can all look back on our lives and say, it was during that most difficult time that I learned the most about myself, about my family, about who I am. So it's the mess has all the good juice in it.
You're so right about that. I so agree, because it's when we're in positions where we have to challenge ourselves, we really get to see who it is that we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, so we talk about mindfulness with your book. Okay. So is that the same as meditation? Because a lot of times people think, well, do I have to meditate if I'm going to be mindful?
That's such a good question. And if you ask 30 different teachers, they will give you 30 different answers, and that's okay. I'll share my answer with you. So you'll often hear mindfulness meditation, right? You might be going on a retreat or a day-long retreat, and they'll say a mindfulness meditation retreat. So they can kind of be used one and the same. When I talk about the two, I separate them. So meditation is more of our formal practice. We tell ourselves, for this 15 minutes or for this 20 minutes or for this hour, I'm going to do this kind of practice, whether it be sitting straight up with our eyes closed, and as you imagine seeing someone sitting in meditation, whether it be on a chair or on a cushion on the floor, or maybe we're practicing a walking meditation where we're just going nowhere, back and forth and back and forth. So we're doing a specific practice to focus and gather the mind in one way or another. So that's what I call meditation. And mindfulness really can be woven in. Of course, we practice mindfulness when we're doing meditation. That is just being aware of our moment-to-moment experience. And that can happen at any point of our day. So we may just be washing the dishes and take a moment to feel the water, or in the shower. That's such a beautiful time when just allowing the warm water to rush over us and to have that experience. My favorite one is in the morning when I get to have my first cup of tea. I have a ritual. I just love to smell it and hold the cup and really just experience that moment. And just like, I'm so grateful to be having my tea in that moment. So this moment of gratitude practice. So mindfulness can be woven in anywhere, and it doesn't have to be about happy and peaceful and calm. It can also be around, my chest is tight. I'm having some anxiety. What's going on? Like, nothing's happening. Why am I having this experience? And maybe we explore it and do inquiry, or maybe we just note it. There's some anxiety present right now. Okay. Or I'm feeling angry right now. So we can be mindful of anything throughout our day. So that's how I like to distinguish the two. And I always like to share, they're often used in connection as well, to be called mindfulness meditation.
Well, I really like how you define both of them, because it makes it very clear, So one thing, I think a lot of times people think, if I'm being mindful means that I am always serene and calm. Is that the case?
No, and that's one of the biggest misconceptions of mindfulness, is that it's meant to be calm. And also one of the biggest myths is that you're not supposed to be thinking. So there's a big myth that you're supposed to be calm all the time, and you're supposed to be getting rid of your thoughts. And that is just not the case, and it's not possible. Thoughts are beautiful. All our most creative ideas come out of our thoughts, and we want to be able to notice them coming and going, and not be so attached to them or believe all of them. So we want to bring awareness to them. And sometimes when I sit down to do my meditation, I'm very wiggly and anxious and irritated and irritable. And that's my practice that day, to be able to sit and tolerate the discomfort of that moment, because I'm uncomfortable. And so I sit and I learn to be with it in that way. And sometimes I sit and it's really quiet and peaceful, and I feel kind of fuzzy and warm and sweet. And so that day I sit with that, at least for a few minutes at a time, and then something else will happen. Something else comes in. So no, it's not meant to be calm all the time, although it is a lovely outcome of a lot of practice. When you're around people who practice regularly and have been practicing for a long time, there is quite a bit of calm and ease that emanates from them.
Yeah. It really does. It has lots of health benefits. So it's having a mindful practice or mindful meditation practice is I think, just a fabulous way to be.
Yeah, it really is. It is. I mean, it supports so many parts of our lives. It helps us to calm our mind. It helps us to have clarity in the mind, to be more clear. Mm-hmm. It helps us to regulate our emotions. It just really affects our overall well-being. And we know this if we have experience and practice, and they're showing this in the science and the research, as I'm sure that you know. It's all pointing to doing beautiful things in the body and in the brain.
Well, and so this kind of leads me to my next question. So I know in your book you talk about how we should really embrace the messiness. And so why would we do that?
Well, I think, the human condition is such that we often grab on to what makes us happy and feel good and push away what makes us feel not so good. And so I think with mindfulness practice, we learn to be with both of those things. We don't need things to be a certain way. And so we can embrace, when I say embrace the messiness, what I'm really saying is be with what is in that moment, in any moment. And that when things feel messy and icky and yucky, to try not to push it away, because the more we push against it, it's kind of like when someone is passive aggressive with us, mm-hmm. It kind of draws us in. It doesn't actually, it's hard to pull away and step away. And it's the same thing with the mess of our lives. If we're irritated by it and trying to push it away, it actually affects us more often than not. That's been my experience anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, and obviously you're the expert on this topic. I mean, you've got this fabulous book, Mindful Parenting in a Messy World. So, of course, people, you've kind of blazing this trail for people. You talk also in your book about, parents and how they should rather kind of work on themselves and trying to fix their kids. Why don't you explain a little bit more of that for us?
Yeah, and it's perfect even that you just called me an expert, because when you said that, I'm like, well, okay, I have been doing this stuff for a long time, but I'm still such a student.
Aren't we all?
Yes, I'm still such a student. Yeah. And so, say your question again. Sorry, I got stuck on.
I hate the expert thing. I know. When someone said it to me, I'm like, well, I'm not quite feeling like one today. So. It really is. No, it's okay. It's really about the question, parents who, are always trying to fix their children, and how you're really, you're telling them kind of, hey, focus on yourself instead.
Yes, absolutely. So focus. But whenever a parent says to me, can you help me? My kid is doing this. They are talking back to me all the time, being rude. The first thing I'll do is, well, let's explore that within yourself. Right? I've done a lot of work with Byron Katie. I'm not sure if you're familiar with mm-hmm. Byron Katie's work. With the work.
And we've had her on the show process. A couple times.
She is magical. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of the work that is around that. It's this inquiry work. Everything that we're blaming out there is very often living in here. And so we do the work internally first. That doesn't mean, so sometimes a parent will say, well, then doesn't that just give kids the right to just go off and do whatever they want and be rude and, grow up to be horrible human beings? And no, it doesn't mean that. I mean, we want to be creating boundaries and holding those boundaries and teaching and guiding and supporting, and really be watching for those places where we want other people to change. It's hard to ask someone else to do something that we haven't done ourselves. It's kind of like with the phones, don't be on your phone so much. As soon as I think that about my kids, I immediately turn it around to me. How much have I been on my phone, particularly in front of them? And I look at that first. And if I want to have a conversation with them around the phones, I'll own up to what I'm doing. Right? I'll own up to, we made an agreement not to use our phones in the kitchen. And I actually have been busy with work this week, and I've used my phones in the kitchen. I've used my phone in the kitchen. I'm guessing you've seen me do that. And now I'm finding myself frustrated that you're using your phone. And so I just want to have a conversation and make a new agreement about our phones again, right? So how different is that than turn off your phone, put it down, too much phone, and I've done that too. Certainly, we all have. I mean, I've completely done that too. All of these examples are on my best days. Let's just be clear about that. But I try to have more good days than not. And then it's a different conversation. It's, what, I do this too, and let's figure this out together. Because usually that is the case. The things that we're frustrated with them about, we also do. Why? Don't wait till the last minute to leave. And we can all find ourselves waiting to that last minute, right, and barely being on time. And they see that. They're watching us. So especially as they get older, now that I have a teenager, they will call us out, especially if you've given them permission to call you out, which I have. Oh, you can't hide.
It's that level of accountability, right? The whole family has it.
Yes. So it's always us first.
So, okay, so what is accepting versus fixing, and how do we get there?
So fixing tends to be short and curt. It tends to be something we just want to fix it. We want to get it done. We want to move on. We want to get on with things. And accepting can have a level of fixing in it. It's just that we're going to kind of learn to be with things as they are and explore them and maybe do inquiry. And then just from that accepting of them as they are, they often, I'm sure you've found, sometimes change. When I'm doing coaching work and some new awareness comes to one of my clients, often nothing else needs to be done. It's magical. Awareness has this magic in it. So sometimes it's just in bringing the awareness to something that we're struggling with that the solution appears or that the stress fades. And so there's this beauty in accepting things as they are and then seeing what comes next, instead of, like we were saying earlier, pushing against it and wanting things to be different and wanting to fix it, especially where our kids are concerned. Because we all have, many of us, have that child that is very slow. I have one of them. Even in preschool and kindergarten, he was pulling up the rear. We get home from being out to dinner, and we're all in the house onto something else, and he's still sitting in the car thinking about opening the back door. And I look out wondering, what is he doing in there? What goes on? And he's just not in a rush. And for so long, I kind of, there was a fight against it within me, and even worse for my poor husband, who's like on the move. You can't slow him down. So they used to drive each other crazy because they were opposites. And so there was this needing of accepting him just as he was. We were not going to make him into a person who speeds along in life. My husband and I both move a lot quicker than he does. And so he became our teacher in that instance. And for me, I'm like bowing to the Buddha as far as I was concerned to him, because he was at this pace that was really quite beautiful and most of the time caused no commotion or problem. And the problem was in our mind, that he should be moving faster, right? That should word.
Well, and it's interesting. What a perfect example of mindfulness in itself. It's like, stop and smell the roses. Take a little bit more time. Don't be in such a big rush,
Absolutely. As it turns out, he has very slow processing. He was diagnosed with slow processing and ADD, which we didn't know when he was very young. And it all makes so much sense that it would be that way, that he just processes things slower and takes his time. And, we've found the beauty in it instead of just being frustrated with it all the time.
Yeah, and trying to make it something, that it's definitely not, and that could be such especially when, when we're trying to push people to kind of fit, a round mold when they're a square peg. It's like, it's okay. It doesn't have to be a certain way,
Yeah, no, it does not have to be a certain way. In fact, every time we think something should be, if the word should comes up, it's just like the little temple bell ringing. Oh, give it some attention. I'm using the S word. the should word. Yeah, it's a call to take another look and ask another question.
Yeah, and just say, hey, we need to re-examine this. Well, and so, this is actually perfect for my next question, because a lot of moms, they feel like they need to be, a superwoman, and they've got pressure to be perfect and guilt if they don't live up to their own expectations. How can mindfulness help them?
That's such a good question. Well, there's a wonderful, I'll offer another book. My friend Mark Coleman wrote a book about the inner critic that I highly recommend. And, again, mindfulness is that practice that's going to help us get to know this. His book is called Make Peace with Your Mind. It just came to me, Make Peace with Your Mind. And it's a book on the inner critic. And it really is that we have to be able to see those patterns emerging. So when I sit, particularly for extended periods of time, and very conscious of my thoughts, and I see, I criticize myself a lot. That's something that I do. And if I'm not criticizing myself, I'm planning something. And if I'm not planning something, I'm regretting something I said to someone. So those patterns became very clear to me. And the more I sat with them and the more I watched them and worked with them, the less of a bite they had when they arose. I would see them and see them come up and think and say, yeah, there that is. There I am. There I go again, but not take it so seriously. So I do think that's one of the real beauties of this practice, because we can be, as moms and dads too, can be so hard on ourselves. We're not good enough. We need to be something different than we are, which really is just a little bit of insanity, because we can't be any different than we are in any given moment.
Yeah. And for parents that kind of go like, gosh, okay, so what do I do when, like, I'm angry or frustrated or sad or feeling guilty? Like, what am I supposed to do with those negative feelings?
They are a part of who we are, no question. So there's different things we can do. Let's say we're with our children, and they're, who knows how old they are. Maybe they're 8 years old and 12 years old or something, and you're really frustrated and you're really angry. One thing you could do is to say, I am really frustrated and I'm really angry, and I don't want to say anything I don't want to say, and I'm going to step away. I'm going to go into my room. Of course, children have to be the right age, so you can leave them alone. And I'm going to go into my room, or I'm going to take a walk, and I'm going to compose myself, and I'm going to calm myself down, and then I'm going to come back, and I'd love to talk if you're open to it. Right? So that's one way. So we make the implicit explicit. We share our process with our kids. It's one of the very best things that we can do for our children when we're involved in this work, particularly, because we share with them our process. We can, in that moment, do some sort of a micro practice, like a short centering practice. My friend Lori Schwambach, who I do a lot of women's leadership work with, she taught me this beautiful little micro practice, and it's a 3-breath practice. And you can do it in minutes, or you can do it in seconds. So the first breath is just completely feeling the breath in that moment. So just breathing in and breathing out, and just really noticing the breath coming in and out. One breath. And then the next breath, we breathe in and we breathe out, and we relax the body. We allow the body to be relaxed. And then the next breath, we breathe in and we breathe out, and we ask ourselves, what's most important right now? And we wait for an answer, and we see if anything comes. And particularly when we're with our children, what is usually going to come? For me, it's usually, connection is what matters most right now, right? I'm frustrated and I'm angry, but I just took these 3 breaths, and what matters most now is connection. So how can I be more connected to my child right now, or to myself? So we can calm ourselves down in that moment.
And what a simple tool to use to really kind of refocus and get out of, reacting as opposed to responding.
Absolutely. Exactly. And sometimes we do react. And sometimes we do say things we wish we didn't, right? The words come out and you just wish you could grab them and put them back in. Or we do something, we grab their arm, we throw something down, like whatever it is, right? That happens too. And then we can recover. I love Dan Siegel's work around recovery. That's the most important part of when we get angry. It's okay, I got angry. And we accept that's what just happened. And now how do I repair? And when we come back and we repair with our children, it makes the bonds even tighter and makes us even stronger and makes us even more connected. So, we try to get away from that guilt of having made a mistake or, done something wrong with our children and with our partners, and we come back and we repair, and we see how that's actually deepened the relationship.
What a beautiful place to be in, because it really is, getting to parenting at the core of why we have children and what we want to expect out of ourselves, and in order to be the best parents possible, but in a way that's authentic.
Yeah, we have to do us. We have to be ourselves first in the parent-child relationship. Yeah, we don't. We have to see those hats we put on. The person in control, the captain, the all-knowing, the omnipotent,
the pirate, right?
Yes, the pirate, the tyrant. We have all these hats that we put on as a parent, and really, what our kids need from us more often than not is just being who we are. And, that will annoy them once they get to be a certain age. Now they're very clear.
Without a doubt. Well, and so when parents, sometimes they feel like they've lost themselves in their parenting journey, or they, just aren't feeling, and this is kind of a nice way to piggyback on this, it's just like their needs aren't being met. What advice do you have for them that are kind of struggling with their feelings?
Yeah, well, it depends on which needs are not being met, right? So that's the first question. If somebody came to me and said, I'm just kind of lost myself in this whole parenting thing, my needs aren't being met, I would say, well, what needs? What are the needs? So we have to go in and ask ourselves, what's not working for me? And it might be a need for more freedom. And I think that's really common. And I think often parents feel really guilty about that. I shouldn't want to feel free. I chose to have a family, right? So somehow that means we shouldn't be able to have freedom sometimes. And so it might be that. And so then, okay, well, what does that look like? What's possible within this family system at this point in time to allow yourself to feel some freedom, right? Or do we change a little bit of the monthly budget so that I can have a babysitter once a week, right, for a few hours, and go to a yoga class or get outside in nature or whatever it might be? So we ask ourselves the question. It might be a need for more connection to our friends or to our partner. And so maybe if we have a partner, and we make some agreements with our partner or maybe with a friend who cares about us to be able to be with our kids a little while so that we can go out with our partner or with our friends or see family and deepen those connections. So I think the answer to your question lies in what is it that we need? And then how can we be creative in giving that to ourselves?
Well, and, this is kind of a perfect time to ask this question then. So, gosh, you get these parents and they're so busy. They're running from job to job to job, running the jobs, and they've got, all these different things that are going on with, either practice for the kids or you name it. They just feel like they're stretched thin. How can they find time to meditate when they feel like their schedule's already double booked?
Well, I actually wrote an article for the Harvard Business Review not too long ago called How Busy Working Parents Can Make Time for Mindfulness. And in it, I outline how parents can, even busy working parents who are working, taking the kids everywhere, it seems like you have no time, to write down from the moment you wake up in the morning until the moment you go to bed at night, what does your day look like? So maybe you spend 5 minutes, and I don't mean like write a paragraph. I mean just wake up, go to the bathroom, go downstairs, have tea, let the dog out, feed the kids, whatever it might be. Get on the train, get dressed, get on the train through the whole day. And then look through that list and think, where could I fit a moment of mindfulness in? Right? So maybe we drop our kids off to jiu-jitsu at 5:30 on Thursdays, whatever it might be. And in the parking lot, I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to download one of the apps, maybe Headspace or Simple Habit, and I'm going to do a 5-minute meditation while I'm sitting waiting for them. Or maybe I'm on the way to pick them up or something. And so that's going to be a place I interject a moment of mindfulness. Or, I get up and down from my computer all day long at work. I think each time I sit down at my computer, I'm going to take one intentional breath. And I'm going to write myself a little note. I'm going to put the word breathe somewhere so I see it. One intentional breath before I get started to work again. Or I'm going to mindfully walk from the train to my car when I'm on my way home. I'm really going to notice my steps, one step at a time as I walk to the car. And it doesn't have to, walk slow and look weird. It just means I'm really going to, feel my muscles moving from one leg to another, feel the breeze on my face, and walk mindfully to my car. So see where I'm going here? You can interject anywhere, mindfulness. And when I tell this story a lot, I'm sorry if anybody's listened to me before, but when my kids were really young, I was really struggling, not being able to find time for meditation. I was very committed to practice. And I was bemoaning to one of my teachers that, I can't find time to practice. And at night, my kids want me to stay in bed with them and wait till they fall asleep. And then half the time I fall asleep. And she said, well, why don't you sit in their room while they're falling asleep? And I thought, that's so genius. I never thought of that. That's such a genius idea. So I would snuggle with them, and we'd have our ritual time. And then I would have my little cushion in their room, and we made this agreement that after I snuggled, I'd go and I'd sit there, and I would stay in the room long past the time they fell asleep, and I would do my meditation. And I did that for years. And it was a beautiful way to get a lot of practice in. And it was right in front of me, but I hadn't seen it. So there's some ideas.
That is a great, and it's so simple. It's like, hey, well, you meditate anywhere.
Yeah, right?
So mindfulness practice can follow you regardless of where you're going,
Yeah, it can. I mean, and the more you practice and the more you do it, the more you're drawn to it. The longer I practiced and the more consistent I was, the more mindfulness started doing me. It would just happen spontaneously in a moment because it just became a habit. It really does become a habit. And you can do that even if you're not sitting formally.
Well, and that's the thing, because a lot of times people have this idea in their head that it has to look a certain way. Like you have to be seated with your legs crossed in lotus, and and then you're okay to go. Somehow that will magically snap you into mindfulness.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. You could be sitting in your chair or on your couch or in your car. Notice in your car. I always tell people, notice in your car. Sometimes I'm in my car and I'm all hunched in and I'm stressed and tight. Feel really tight. I'm like, what am I doing right now? That's the time. Notice, we do that in the car because somebody cut us off or, we're noticing somebody getting upset on the road or whatever it might be. And so just one breath, relax the shoulders, feel your weight in the chair, feel your feet on the pedal, just a moment into the body and a breath, and then you kind of move on.
Yeah. It allows you to really kind of get into the kind of this, mindfulness zone where you're able to kind of just go, okay, I can do this now.
Yeah, I can do this now, and just remembering to do it. And leaving, I always stress to leave little notes or, those little stickies that you get from Office Depot or something from that kind of store, and just choose a color and just put them around, in the corner of your computer screen, in your wallet, that you open, over where your driver's license is tucked in, places that you have to go to a lot during the day, and inside the kitchen cabinet. When you open the refrigerator, in the refrigerator have a little dot or some other sparkly sticker or whatever makes you happy. and so those are just little reminders, little temple bells ringing. Oh, be here, be present in this moment. How can you weave a moment of mindfulness into this moment?
Yeah, and be able to have that. Well, and, in your book, you talk about how parents are often their harshest critics. Why is compassion so important in parenting?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, so there's been so much research done on mindfulness, and really what's coming behind it strongly now is self-compassion and compassion, and especially for parents, because we can be harder on ourselves than just about anyone, I think. And there's someone doing a lot of research. I don't know if you've ever had Kristen Neff on your show. She does a lot of work on self-compassion. If you haven't, I would highly recommend her. She's really amazing. And, her research has showed that there's these three elements of self-compassion. There's self-kindness versus self-judgment. So we notice we're judging ourselves. And when we notice, and we have the mindfulness, then we say something kind to ourselves. Like we kind of soothe ourselves as if we would soothe a friend or as if we would soothe one of our children. So we can be warm and understanding towards ourselves. There's, she calls it common humanity versus isolation. So really it's just, oh, I'm not the only one that goes through this, right? When your kid's having a temper tantrum in the grocery store and you're feeling mortified and everyone's looking over.
Everyone's either been that parent or been that kid.
Yeah. Right? Exactly. And if they think they haven't, they're just wrong. Everybody has gone through it in one way or another, on one side or the other. And just to say to ourselves, oh, this is a moment of suffering. This is hard. And I'm not the only one who's gone through this, right? I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one who's had a crying baby on an airplane. So we recognize that this suffering is just part of the human experience and part of this moment. And then the last piece is mindfulness, versus being over-identified with any situation. And mindfulness really holds both of these things. So we can kind of take our negative emotions that we're feeling in the moment, and we don't try to suppress them, and we don't over-exaggerate them. We just meet them as they are. And so those two things, mindfulness, common humanity, and self-kindness, are the three elements of self-compassion. And parents, we are hard on ourselves, and we know we're hard on ourselves. And if we can be aware of it, oh, I'm really being hard on myself right now, have that mindfulness, then we can shift to self-compassion.
Well, and so on the flip side of that, when parents are like living through their kids, and it always just places such a hard burden on the children. What are some of the signs that the parents are doing that, and how can they stop?
Oh my goodness, this is such a hard one, and this is a hard one for people to see. It's really blind to many of us, and we all do it. We've all done it, some of us more than others as parents, but we often live through our children. When you ask someone, like, why did you have a child? It's usually about you, Well, if you ask my husband, why did you have two kids? Well, we wanted to live vicariously through our kids and see what it was like. We're both only children. I mean, really, that is the reason we had two kids. Well, we kind of wanted to see what it was like to have a sibling. It was really, in a lot of ways, it was about us. And we have to be honest with ourselves about that. We want our children to play the piano, and we want them to be good at it, and we want it to be something they have their whole lives because we didn't. We quit the piano too early, and we always regretted not playing the piano. And so, God dang it, our kids are going to play the piano, right, or some other instrument. So we want to live through them. We want to live you see dads all the time living through their kids through athletics. That this is something I could never do, but look at my kid. My kid can do this. And then all of a sudden, it's really about the parent and not about the child. You're laughing because I know you've seen it on the side of the sidelines.
Yep, that's something that you can tell some parents are a little bit more active in that than others.
Yes. We live vicariously. And so when we ask ourselves, why do we have kids? Oh, it's often about us and not about the children. And so from there, when we can notice that, we can see that in ourselves first, right? That takes mindfulness, and it takes that meta-awareness of being able to watch ourselves, right? So we're having that awareness that this is happening. And then we have to really ask ourselves, like, who is the child in front of me? And to me, that's one of the most beautiful pieces of mindfulness. I was on a mindfulness retreat last year. It was an extended retreat, and we were asked in the very beginning of the retreat, before we went into silence, why we were there. And I was doing a lot of work around myself at that point, and a lot of work around my children. And I got tears in my eyes, and I said, I want to make sure that I can be present for the child in front of me, not the beliefs or the pictures or the movies I have of them in my mind. So I really want to be present for who's in front of me. And that's the work. That's the work with getting from I'm living through my child and I want them to be a certain way because it makes me feel good about myself, to who's in front of me and how do I help bring out that magic that is unique to only them and be with that, right? Be with all that sparkly goodness that's in front of us, right?
Well, and then when you have that combined with the mindfulness part, I mean, you get to enjoy each of those moments.
You do. You get to enjoy each of them, and moment by moment. And sometimes you're not enjoying a moment, and that's okay too. Then we come back, just like when we're meditating and our mind wanders. And people say, "Oh, I can't meditate because my mind wanders too much." I'm like, no, that's what that's the practice. That's what it's supposed to be doing. It wanders, and you bring it back, right? We go back into our ego selves and our belief systems, and then we notice them, and then we come back, and that's mindful parenting in a messy world. That's really what we're doing.
That's not the whole of it, because I mean your book has so much information. I really appreciated it because it was such a great read. Michelle, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your book and your community?
Well, I'm online at michellegale.com, and the book is for sale. There's a Kindle and also an Audible version on Amazon. And if they live locally in the San Francisco Bay Area, it is being sold at the Book Passage right now. I just did a talk there the other night. And I'm also doing wonderful work with women leaders, a lot of them being parents. And that website is mindfulnessadvantage.life. Those are my projects. Yeah.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If you'd like to learn more about Michelle and her book, Mindful Parenting in a Messy World, you can visit her website at michellegale.com. We'll have the link right below here. We're at the end of our time for today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.